The first indication that something catastrophic has occurred isn't a siren or explosion. It's the absence of light. Across the eastern seaboard, cities and suburbs that normally glow with electricity are suddenly plunged into complete darkness. Streetlights flicker out, office towers go black, and homes are silent except for the occasional hum of a generator. This is not a typical outage caused by weather or technical malfunction. Experts have long warned that a coordinated cyber attack on the operational technology controlling the power grid could trigger a simultaneous shutdown across multiple regions. And now that warning has become reality. Within minutes, the effects cascade. Breakers and substations and control systems are manipulated remotely, effectively locking the grid in a failed state. Unlike a physical attack, the perpetrators never set foot in the United States. They are manipulating systems from thousands of miles away, using sophisticated malware designed to bypass normal safety protocols. The US power grid is divided into interconnections: Eastern, Western, and Texas. In this scenario, the malware targets critical nodes in the Eastern interconnection, causing a blackout that stretches from Boston to Atlanta. Traffic lights go dark instantly, subway systems halt, and millions of commuters are trapped in the chaos. Communication systems begin to degrade rapidly. Cell towers rely on backup generators that can last only a few hours. And as usage spikes from panicked citizens attempting to call family members, networks become overloaded, internet connectivity falters as data centers struggle to maintain power and cooling without electricity. Social media explodes with reports and hashtags, but the flood of information overwhelms the very systems people are trying to use for updates. Hospitals switch to emergency generators, which power only essential equipment. MRI machines, Connecticut scanners, and connected medical devices cease functioning outside critical areas. Emergency services like fire departments and ambulance networks are immediately stressed. Without traffic signals and functioning communication, response times increase dramatically. In this first hour, society operates on inertia and the limited energy stored in batteries, cell phones, flashlights, and backup systems. Yet the awareness of a widespread attack begins to set in. What makes this first hour especially dangerous is the unknown. Citizens do not know whether this blackout is temporary, a natural disaster, or the opening salvo of a more extensive campaign. Governments and utilities have contingency plans, but even the most sophisticated protocols are tested to their limits in a simultaneous, multi-state cyber event. The uncertainty, combined with the sudden disappearance of power, creates a psychological tension that surpasses physical danger. By the end of 60 minutes, the first tangible consequences are visible. Gridlock paralyzes major roadways. People are trapped in elevators and subway cars. Data-dependent systems, from financial transactions to water treatment facilities, begin to strain, though the full effects are yet to unfold. The line of code that started this attack has done more than shut down machines. It has instantly disrupted the rhythm of everyday life, exposing the fragility of the infrastructure Americans rely on without thinking. This is the digital Pearl Harbor, silent, invisible, and devastating. In just 1 hour, the foundations of modern civilization, electricity, communication, and transportation, are under siege. The next moments as the blackout spreads will determine how quickly society can respond or how deeply the attack will spiral into a prolonged disaster. As the blackout moves past its second hour, the realization that this is not a temporary outage begins to settle in. The cascading failures now reach the essential systems that underpin society: healthcare, finance, and communications. Hospitals, while running on emergency generators, face limitations almost immediately. Generators provide power only for life-sustaining equipment, leaving administrative systems and non-critical medical devices offline. Electronic health records, which contain patient histories, allergies, and ongoing treatments, are inaccessible. Clinicians are forced to rely on memory, paper charts, and improvisation. In 2024, an outage at a major U.S. healthcare provider temporarily disrupted electronic records nationwide, offering a small preview of the chaos, but the current scenario is exponentially more severe. The financial system is simultaneously crippled. Major banks, ATMs, and payment processors rely on digital networks that are now offline. Debit and credit cards stop working, digital transfers stall, and stock exchanges pause trading. People who depend solely on electronic money are cut off, unable to access savings or purchase essentials. Cash, once largely obsolete for daily use, regains immense value. Analysts have warned for years that a simultaneous cyber attack on banking infrastructure could trigger rapid economic panic. Now the theory becomes reality. Communications degrade rapidly. Cell towers run on limited battery reserves, and as millions attempt to call loved ones or access news, networks collapse under the volume. Major news outlets scramble to maintain emergency radio broadcasts, but their reach is limited. Social media platforms, once alive with hashtags and updates, slow to a crawl or become entirely inaccessible. Even small internet service providers begin to fail as the demand for connectivity overwhelms backup systems. The United States, for all its technological sophistication, is now facing an information vacuum. People know only that something is wrong, but not why or how extensive the attack is. Emergency response systems are immediately challenged. Dispatch centers for police, fire, and medical services are inundated with calls. Without traffic signals and with widespread gridlock on major highways, ambulances and fire trucks struggle to reach critical locations. National protocols like the National Cyber Incident Response Plan are activated, mobilizing agencies such as CISA, DHS, and the FBI. However, their operations are hindered by the very infrastructure they are attempting to secure. Coordination across agencies is slowed by compromised communications, leaving field units to make split-second decisions without centralized guidance. By hour 6, the cumulative strain on society becomes evident. Water treatment facilities that rely on electricity begin to fail, risking contamination and shortages. Refrigerated and frozen food in homes, stores, and hospitals spoil as supply chains are disrupted. Gas stations without functioning pumps leave drivers stranded, creating lines and congestion in the few areas still accessible. Panic buying intensifies as citizens anticipate prolonged shortages. As the 12th hour approaches, the US faces a new reality. The failure of systems designed with redundancies and fail-safes has revealed the fragility of modern life. Critical infrastructure, electricity, finance, healthcare, and communications has become interdependent in ways that amplify the effects of a single attack. For millions, the day that began with darkness has transformed into a life-altering crisis. Society has not yet descended into chaos, but the foundations for widespread disruption are firmly in place. The first half day of the attack underscores a chilling truth. When a cyber attack targets operational technology and critical networks simultaneously, the consequences are not confined to the digital realm. They ripple instantly through every corner of daily life. By the end of 12 hours, the United States is no longer just experiencing a technical failure. It is beginning to feel the human and social impact of a digital siege. As the sun rises on the second day, the full scope of the crisis begins to reveal itself. The digital blackout has transformed from a technological failure into a human one. People wake to empty refrigerators, stalled vehicles, and streets filled with abandoned cars. The reliance on digital logistics and just-in-time supply chains becomes painfully clear. These systems, which manage everything from grocery deliveries to fuel distribution, require constant data flow and communication. With networks down and transportation systems immobilized, supply chains grind to a halt. Fuel shortages become immediately apparent. Gas stations that have mechanical pumps or small emergency generators become focal points of desperation. Lines stretch for miles, and drivers ration whatever fuel remains. During the Colonial Pipeline shutdown in 2021, a 5-day outage caused widespread panic in a single region. Now imagine that scenario nationwide, with no timeline for restoration. Transportation of food, medicine, and emergency supplies is delayed indefinitely, amplifying the risk to urban and rural populations alike. Grocery stores face rapid depletion of essential goods. Refrigeration systems fail without electricity, causing perishable items to spoil. Bottled water, canned foods, and dry staples vanish from shelves within hours. Panic buying and hoarding intensify as households realize that restocking is impossible. In some areas, bartering emerges as a practical necessity. Water, batteries, and fuel become the new currency. The immediate convenience of modern life is replaced with a raw struggle for survival. Water and sanitation systems are next. Water treatment plants require electricity to maintain pressure and purify supply. Once backup generators fail or fuel runs out, taps run dry, toilets no longer flush, and the risk of waterborne diseases rises dramatically. This is not a theoretical threat. In 2023, the EPA reported that cybersecurity vulnerabilities exist in nearly half of US water utilities. illustrating how easily attackers could compromise these systems. Without clean water, hygiene deteriorates and illness spreads, particularly affecting vulnerable populations such as the elderly and children. Healthcare is further strained, hospitals have limited supplies, and chronic care becomes a critical concern. Patients dependent on insulin, dialysis, or other essential treatments face life-threatening situations. Clinics without power cannot provide basic care, and emergency response teams are stretched thin, forced to prioritize immediate life or death cases. The mortality risk from indirect effects, spoiled medications, untreated chronic conditions, and infectious disease is significant. Social tensions escalate. Without official information, rumors and fear spread rapidly. Communities fracture along lines of access to resources and security. Some neighborhoods form organized groups to protect supplies and help vulnerable members. Others experience rising crime, theft, and conflict as desperation grows. Trust in government and institutional guidance is severely eroded. Communication breakdown leaves citizens relying primarily on word of mouth and local knowledge. By the end of day 3, the United States is facing a reality unimaginable just 72 hours earlier. The immediate technological failure has cascaded into societal disruption. Shortages, health risks, and social unrest dominate daily life. People are learning rapidly and painfully how dependent they are on electricity, digital networks, and coordinated supply chains. The digital attack has now fully crossed into the physical and social realms, setting the stage for prolonged disruption. By the 4th day, the initial shock of the cyber attack has given way to a grim, grinding reality. While cybersecurity teams and hidden command centers work tirelessly to regain control of the compromised networks, communities in the dark face an escalating struggle for survival. Local services that remained functional on generator, power, or manual systems are now severely limited. Streets grow unsanitary as trash collection halts, sewage systems begin to fail, and rodents and pests proliferate. In many urban areas, residents are forced to improvise, creating rudimentary sanitation systems and rationing food and water to survive. Engineers and cybersecurity experts confront an unprecedented technical challenge. The malware embedded in the grid and industrial control systems is sophisticated, designed to trigger physical damage if systems are restored incorrectly. Transformers and substations may be at risk if power is reintroduced too quickly, making every attempt to restart the grid a delicate operation. Specialists employ black start procedures, bringing small generators online and gradually energizing local sections of the network. But progress is painstakingly slow and fraught with danger. Each step must balance supply and demand carefully, or risk triggering a cascade of further failures. The social consequences intensify. As power remains scarce, people with fuel for vehicles attempt to leave the hardest hit areas, causing severe congestion and blocking evacuation routes. In some neighborhoods, community members form patrols to safeguard resources and protect the vulnerable, effectively creating micro-societies. In contrast, other areas experience opportunistic crime, looting, and disorder as law enforcement struggles to maintain a presence. The patchwork of stability and chaos highlights the uneven impact of the blackout across different regions. Economic disruption deepens. Businesses that rely on electronic systems remain shuttered. Manufacturing plants stop production entirely, and transportation networks cannot deliver goods. The Department of Energy has previously estimated that standard outages cost the US up to $150 billion annually. A nationwide cyber-induced blackout magnifies that impact exponentially. People who survive the immediate physical threats now face financial insecurity, shortages of essentials, and uncertainty about the weeks to come. By day 5, the psychological toll is severe. The information vacuum created by non-functioning media and communications fosters widespread fear and paranoia. Residents rely on rumors, social media snippets when they can access a connection, and word of mouth for guidance. Mistrust spreads, both between communities and toward authorities, as official updates remain sparse. The National Guard is deployed to secure critical sites like fuel depots, food warehouses, and hospitals, but their limited numbers mean they cannot intervene everywhere. In some areas, their presence reassures civilians. In others, it fuels tension as martial law is felt, not announced. The interdependence of systems becomes painfully clear. Water, food, fuel, and medical services all rely on electricity and connectivity. When one component fails, others follow. The once invisible networks that sustain modern life have become lifelines under siege. Each day that passes without full restoration intensifies the consequences of the attack, deepening the gap between those who have access to resources and those who do not. By the seventh day, society has fractured into isolated zones of functionality and darkness. Some communities manage to create local systems of governance, sharing resources and maintaining order. Others descend into chaos, with abandoned vehicles, spoiled food, and failing sanitation marking a landscape of crisis. The digital and physical worlds, once separate in concept, have now merged into a single, fragile reality where survival depends on resourcefulness, cooperation, and sheer resilience. The first week serves as a sobering reminder that a cyber attack on critical infrastructure is not just a technological event, it is a societal earthquake. The systems that underpin life in America are interwoven and vulnerable, and when they fail, the consequences are immediate, visible, and profoundly human. By the second week, the blackout has become a grim, long-term reality. The initial chaos has subsided into a relentless struggle for survival. For millions still without power, life revolves entirely around securing food, water, and fuel. Streets that were once bustling with activity are now marked by scarcity. Abandoned vehicles, shuttered businesses, and people scavenging for essentials. The country is no longer functioning as a unified system. Daily existence has fractured into micro-survivals based on location, resources, and access to functioning infrastructure. Efforts to restore the power grid continue, but face immense obstacles. Engineers discover that the attackers not only shut down systems, but also deliberately sabotaged key components, including massive custom-built transformers. These transformers are difficult to replace, taking months or even years to manufacture, and stockpiles are minimal. Black Start efforts proceed slowly, with small sections of the grid coming online intermittently. Each restoration must be carefully balanced, as a misstep could trigger another catastrophic failure. Supply chains remain severely disrupted. Trucks cannot deliver goods due to fuel shortages and blocked highways, while food, medicine, and other critical resources dwindle in homes, stores, and warehouses. Communities adapt by rationing, scavenging, and creating barter systems. Items once taken for granted, such as antibiotics, clean water, and canned food, now carry immense value. People quickly learn to prioritize essential survival over convenience, and local ingenuity becomes crucial. Public health deteriorates. Without refrigeration and clean water, foodborne illnesses spread more easily, and chronic conditions become life-threatening. Hospitals are overwhelmed with both trauma cases from accidents and patients suffering from untreated conditions. Mental health also suffers. Anxiety, fear, and the stress of prolonged uncertainty affect all age groups. Deaths from indirect effects, starvation, infection, untreated disease begin to mount, far surpassing immediate casualties from the blackout itself. Government response shifts focus. FEMA and military pivot from maintaining order to providing humanitarian relief. Safe zones are established in areas with intermittent power where food, water, and medical aid are distributed. Military convoys transport supplies to these centers, but the scale of the crisis prevents coverage for everyone. Outside these zones, communities are largely on their own, forced to self-organize and secure resources independently. Society undergoes a profound transformation. Local councils, citizen patrols, and community watch groups emerge to fill gaps left by failing institutions. Barter economies and informal trade replace conventional commerce. Trust in centralized authority erodes as promises of swift restoration prove hollow. Survival becomes both a practical and psychological challenge, emphasizing adaptability, self-reliance, and neighborly cooperation. By the end of the first month, the United States has split into two distinct realities: areas with partial or restored power, and vast regions still in darkness. Life for those in the unpowered zones has regressed by centuries. The fight is no longer about restoring electricity alone. It is about preserving basic human needs and sustaining communities under extreme duress. The blackout has exposed the full fragility of modern civilization, showing how quickly dependency on digital systems can unravel into a harsh, enduring reality. As the timeline stretches into months, the immediate shock of the cyber attack evolves into a persistent period of hardship and adaptation. While some cities regain partial electricity, large swaths of the nation remain in darkness. particularly in regions where physical infrastructure suffered the most extensive sabotage. Communities must rely on stored fuel, local generators, and alternative energy sources to maintain even minimal functionality. For many, daily life becomes a careful balance of conserving resources, maintaining hygiene, and protecting dwindling supplies. The economic consequences are profound. Tens of thousands of businesses, already fragile after weeks of inactivity, permanently close. Digital assets that disappeared in the initial attack remain unrecoverable, and the collapse of e-commerce and financial networks has erased vast amounts of wealth. Hyperinflation begins to take hold in areas where limited goods are available, with prices of essentials skyrocketing. Ordinary currency loses much of its practical value, and communities increasingly turn to bartering or alternative forms of exchange. Government priorities shift to long-term recovery and national security. Emergency cybersecurity legislation is enacted, mandating stringent standards for all critical infrastructure operators. Agencies like CISA gain unprecedented authority and resources, and private companies are compelled to adopt zero trust and network segmentation practices. Investment in domestic manufacturing, agriculture, and decentralized energy production surges, driven by the lessons learned from the vulnerability of centralized systems. Society adapts in unexpected ways. Local self-sufficiency becomes crucial. People learn to grow food, purify water, and repair essential tools without relying on digital guidance. A resurgence in analog skills occurs across generations, emphasizing practical knowledge over technological convenience. Communities become more insular, focusing on protecting their own resources and ensuring the survival of their members, rather than relying on distant authorities. Public health challenges persist. Malnutrition and untreated chronic illnesses continue to take a toll, while contaminated water and limited medical care maintain a steady risk of disease outbreaks. Education systems reliant on digital networks are disrupted indefinitely, forcing parents and local groups to improvise learning environments. Children and teenagers grow up in a drastically different reality, where basic survival skills are as important as traditional knowledge. The long-term psychological impact is significant. Citizens experience chronic stress and trauma. From weeks and months of uncertainty, scarcity, and loss, social bonds are simultaneously strained and strengthened. While conflict over limited resources occurs, communities that cooperate develop resilience and trust. This new way of life reshapes social norms, creating a culture that values preparation, resourcefulness, and local governance above centralized convenience. By the 6-month mark, a new American landscape has emerged. The nation is patchworked between zones of restored functionality and regions still enduring prolonged darkness. Society is poorer, more fragmented, and more cautious. The attack has permanently altered how people perceive security infrastructure and dependence on technology. Life has slowly adjusted to a hybrid reality, where resilience and self-reliance define survival, setting the stage for the next chapter: the lasting changes in a post-cyber attack world. 1 year after the massive cyber attack, the United States is transformed. The immediate fight for survival has ended, but the long-term consequences continue to shape society, infrastructure, and governance. On the geopolitical stage, intelligence agencies have traced the digital fingerprints of the attack, attributing it to sophisticated nation-state actors. Instead of conventional warfare, this conflict was waged in the shadows of cyberspace, targeting critical infrastructure and exposing vulnerabilities that had long been underestimated. Domestically, rebuilding efforts focus on decentralization and resilience. The old power grid is replaced in part by regional microgrids designed to limit cascading failures in the future. Investment in cybersecurity has surged across public and private sectors. New regulations mandate secure system designs and continuous monitoring for critical infrastructure, while companies are required to separate operational technology from corporate networks to prevent a single point of failure. CISA, once a relatively obscure agency within DHS, now wields significant authority, reflecting the elevated importance of digital security to national survival. Society itself has been permanently altered. Many citizens embrace an analog lifestyle, relying on cash, local food supplies, and low-tech solutions for daily needs. Communities have internalized lessons about preparedness, self-sufficiency, and local governance. The attack left an enduring cultural memory, a realization that digital convenience comes with profound risks. Trust in technology is tempered with caution, and individuals prioritize redundancy in their personal and community systems. The economy slowly recovers, but with a new focus. Domestic manufacturing, agriculture, and critical infrastructure are now considered national security priorities. Dependence on foreign suppliers for essential components, from microchips to electrical equipment, is sharply reduced. The attack has forced a reconsideration of supply chain resilience, technological reliance, and strategic autonomy. Education and workforce skills have shifted as well. Emphasis on cybersecurity, engineering, and survival skills becomes widespread, and a new generation grows up acutely aware of the vulnerabilities of interconnected systems. Digital literacy now includes awareness of threats, protective measures, and crisis planning, reflecting the changed national consciousness. Social structures are permanently influenced. Some regions maintain high-tech capabilities, while others retain more self-reliant, low-tech lifestyles. The digital divide has evolved into a survival divide, where preparedness and local coordination determine quality of life. Communities that adapted effectively continue to thrive, while those unable to adjust remain vulnerable to residual challenges. Ultimately, the United States emerges from the crisis as a nation that is more cautious, more resilient, and profoundly aware of its technological dependencies. The lights and networks are mostly restored, but the lessons of the blackout remain etched into national memory. The cyber attack did not just disrupt systems, it reshaped the country, its policies, its culture, and its approach to security for generations to come. The scenario we've explored is a cautionary tale, but it is grounded in reality. The vulnerabilities in America's power grid, financial systems, healthcare infrastructure, and communications networks exist today. Sophisticated cyber adversaries, both state-sponsored and independent, continuously probe these weaknesses. What we've imagined could happen tomorrow, next year, or even over the next decade. Awareness and preparation are the most vital defenses against such threats. Understanding this scenario highlights a critical truth. Modern society is intricately connected and highly efficient, but that efficiency comes with fragility. Every aspect of daily life depends on systems few of us truly see or understand. Electricity, water, healthcare, banking, transportation, and communication networks are interdependent, meaning a single attack on one system can cascade into widespread disruption. Cybersecurity is no longer an abstract technical concern. It is a national security issue with real human consequences. There are steps that individuals and communities can take to reduce vulnerability. Personal preparedness, from storing essentials like water, food, and medical supplies to maintaining offline backups of critical documents, can save lives. Local networks of support, community coordination, and knowledge sharing strengthen resilience when centralized systems fail. Learning analog skills, basic first aid, and emergency response strategies ensures people can survive even in prolonged outages. For governments and organizations, the lessons are clear: invest in resilient infrastructure, segregate operational technology from critical networks, and plan for worst-case scenarios. The post-attack reality emphasizes decentralization, redundancy, and proactive defense. It is no longer enough to react. Preparation, simulation, and continuous assessment are essential. Ultimately, the Great Cyber Blackout shows that our civilization is only as strong as the systems we rely on and the foresight we apply to protect them. While technology brings unprecedented convenience and capability, it also creates new vulnerabilities that must be acknowledged and managed. The story of a nationwide cyber attack is a stark reminder that survival in a connected world requires vigilance, awareness, and planning at every level. And if this scenario intrigues you and you want to explore more hidden risks, hypothetical disasters, and the ways society adapts under extreme pressure, subscribe and continue following our series. Understanding the fragility of our world is not just curiosity, it is a crucial step toward preparing for the unexpected. Because in today's interconnected world, the front lines are everywhere, and the line between stability and chaos can be drawn by a single line of code.